Hey, everybody. Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Quality of Life show. We're very excited to welcome back Bobbi DePorter. You know, she's been on the show for years, and she is known as the Queen of Excellence here because she is the creator of the 8 Keys of Excellence, an amazing character education program for youth, but as adults, we also need it, just saying. She's also the author of a number of educational books and books on teaching. She is the co-founder of SuperCamp and the president of Quantum Learning Network. And we're excited to have her back on the show because, as we all know, learning and teaching has been kind of on the rough side for the last year and a half. Well, since the pandemic started. And, with SuperCamp, it's the world leader in summer academic achievement programs where teens actually go stay on a campus and learn these skills of the 8 Keys of Excellence. They learn how to study, they learn how to communicate, they learn how to think for themselves, make decisions. And so we were all watching Bobbi and SuperCamp like, what are you going to do during the pandemic? Well, the first key of excellence is integrity, and the fifth key is commitment, and they rolled forward. And also flexibility is a key of excellence. So I think they rolled forward with that. So I encourage you to go to supercamp.com, but welcome back, Bobbi. How are you?
I'm doing great. Oh, it's great to be back here with you.
I know this is our first Zoom interview, and we were doing this before the pandemic. We were getting all ready for this kind of thing, and now here we are. Funny
almost didn't know at that time,
Remember, I was teaching people about Zoom. I was like, hey, we can do this, we could do that. It's like, here we are. And I was like, I have to teach everybody Zoom. And then the pandemic happened, and I'm like, oh, well, there's a positive and a negative situation.
It is kind of funny thinking back to the day when you had to teach people about Zoom or show it. It reminds me when we started SuperCamp. This is our 40th year.
Wow.
And we taught students 40 years ago how to turn on a computer. We had to teach them back then. And now, of course, they're so far.
Well, I'm thinking about, I was running around in the hills of Africa. I think the computers at that point, think about how big they were and how different. And remember DOS versus there was no Google back then. Like when we started our magazine is like almost 25 years ago, the one in this country. I mean, there was no internet at that point. I think it was starting. The internet was starting, but we didn't have Google. We had Earthlink books.
We had Earthlink
books that told you what to do. Yeah. So now you have kids running around with phones, and that's going to be a whole different thing because when you see a teenager, majority of the time, sorry, but 90%, right, they've got a phone in front of their face, and adults too. So that's a lot of change.
There is a lot of change. And then thinking where we are now with this last year and a half and the amount of time kids are spending on the Zoom and computer with all their classes and things. So there's this whole swing, the pendulum of how far, and they're just really off to the edge on technology right now.
And it's interesting when the pandemic hit, you guys just turned around and went, okay, we're going to take this online immediately. You started doing virtual workshops, getting kids involved, helping teachers. And we know some teachers are going, you wouldn't believe, 1 minute we have to be virtual, and 1 minute we're not, 1 minute we are. It's this back and forth. And I think, isn't that still the same a little bit, depending on where they are?
It is happening. And I think back about a year and a half ago, it was like a shock. It was only a few months before summer, that the schools closed down, and we learned that we couldn't do our super camps on university campuses, which, that was our 39th year.
Yeah.
And for the very first time, and as you mentioned, we just pivoted so fast, and we did SuperCamp Online. At that time, the students hadn't spent much time in school. It was only a month or so before school shut down, and we had 150 students on with us for a month. Wow. And the real key for it is when kids are on Zoom at school, we're finding most do not turn on their cameras. They're just hidden, and talk about lack of connection and moving backwards. Wow. One of the keys with us was we had these kids for a month, Monday through Friday on with us, but the cameras were on. We got to know them personally. One fun thing is that we were in their home, so we got to meet all their pets, sometimes their family.
We love that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. And they really connected with each other so that they wanted to be on every day.
So what was the difference with what you were doing versus regular school where they could hide away? What do you think that key was?
It's that key of being seen.
Mm.
They're seen. That
Oh,
like
so
I matter, I'm
you're
here.
you're not being called upon as much in the school,
Well,
like
you're
where
a
you,
person.
yeah.
Well,
As
most of them have their cameras off. That's the norm.
Mm,
And so I talk to kids that they're not paying any attention. They are playing their guitar or doing something, but they have their computer on. And he said, I do my own homework at night. I do study the subjects, but I find that I can get more involved for myself sometimes than sitting there with a lecture on Zoom. But we're learning more and teachers are trying, and it's just very, very much a challenge for everybody.
it's a new world, and I think it's going to stay with or without pandemics.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yes,
because I think that the kids
Mm.
are going to be the moving force because they're going to embrace it quicker than adults of some. I just think that it's going to stay.
mm.
Cost saving,
There's got
transportation wise.
there's got to be some mix. You still need that connection because
Yes.
what we're, the statistics are the mental health problems for and challenges for students of all ages has gone way up. But those that have contemplated or have a story around suicide, I heard there's a 44% increase right now.
Oh no.
Well, because there's no touchy feely, like there's no, like, this is like watching Star Trek in a way, where Captain Kirk is like, oh, beam up to this and beam up to that. And that's a TV program and it's not real, but it looks pretty real. And now we're looking just like that. But there's no like.
Now we're Hollywood squares.
Yeah, we could be
Yes.
Hollywood squares, but for kids especially, we need to know that. I mean, we're looking.
You
like
want the pat on the
TV.
shoulder and the compassion.
No, but we're looking like a TV program, which could be real or not.
Yeah. Think about it. When you're watching TV, you can walk away from the commercials. You can walk away. You can hide from it or flip through it now. So when you're doing everything virtually, I think youth miss the tap on the shoulder, the connection with the they know their teacher's looking at them right there, like, don't you dare write that note. Don't you dare, or excuse me, send that text message now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't get that as much in the school.
Away.
So are you working with teachers and even the parents? I was looking online with what you're doing with SuperCamp now. SuperCamp was 7 to 10 days immersive, and still you did that this year and you're still doing it. But it looks like you have like online resources that are year round, but not just for the kids, but also for the parents, because I think the parents got thrown on a loop of like, suddenly you're homeschooling, suddenly, it's like you're running a job, full-time job, and another full-time job of being a teacher. And I mean, the parents need help too.
They do. They do need help, and just having a break sometimes, with it, because it's so constant. It's like you can't walk away from it.
Right.
So looking at just their need for more connection and that social emotional part, we get involved with schools, teaching them on how to teach the students and how important it is about their core emotions and how those lead into feelings. And that some kids just feel, oh, that's just the way I feel, versus, okay, here's a process you can go through with identifying what it is, being more aware, and then consciously flipping that to how do you want to feel and what steps are going to move you in that direction and take more responsibility for how they're feeling at any particular time. Not always, easier said than done sometimes when there's something in a reaction, but it's always that, stop, breathe, and pay attention to what's going on. So, we're learning a lot in that area, and that's a good thing. Before it wasn't forefront. Now it's forefront, and there's always wonderful things happening there. So I do want to always spotlight that too. It's like teachers are trying so hard and working so hard and have so many more challenges. And some of them just also say, give me a break.
Yeah.
It's like,
Mm,
this is what I'm dealing with right now that wasn't there before, and we're trying
bet.
and doing so much. And then, the schools classrooms that are open, that's a good thing. And kids getting together, even at SuperCamp last summer, our numbers were smaller because the universities capped how many students that we could have in
Sure.
one area together. We distanced them. We had students color coded by pods. We did wear masks. And I was at the beginning, we did notice a difference in students as they came. There was like, what's going on? Not all the students, but a percentage was higher with sadness or not having that exuberance, just at the
That
beginning, we
energy.
noticed it. Yeah. And by the end of the program, though, when we bring them up on, invite them to the front of the room to share what they got, it was like, oh, that's why I do what I do. It's like sitting there and listening to the change. And why we do it is for having kids feel good about themselves and feel like I have more confidence. And that's that change in how they stand and walk and demeanor. And then having the parents, some of them, have tears come up because they're watching their child express themselves.
And be
Just that
somebody.
finding their voice.
Yeah, finding their voice, becoming confident about who they are and their place in this world. And teenage years are so complex. It's like, and you also, something I wanted to ask you about is what is happening for you? Because we were actually doing an interview today with a psychotherapist. And I said, well, everybody that I worry about, it's the youth, because they're looking at what's going on in the country with the virus is scary. Some can, there's whatever, whether or not you can get a vaccine, depending on what age, what's going on in your school regarding that, the political dramas, the climate change. We've done some interviews on that with youth too, and they're the ones really standing up. I'm pretty impressed with our youth and what they are doing. If they get into an issue, holy cow, you better run. You either go with them or you better run the other way. Like they are so, I'm seeing youth be so strong, but I also worry, we're seeing changes in the workforce where people, because of COVID, is it 29% or is 20% are looking at what's going on in their life and going, I really didn't like my job. I'm going to start my own thing or go in a different direction. Maybe it's college and go get what I really wanted. So I'm seeing this adult change. Are students changing their goals according to COVID, or how do we keep youth moving forward? Is that an issue, or maybe they're more resilient than us as adults who go, oh, there's a pitfall here, there's a pitfall there, we look more negative? Are they more positive about things compared to adults, do you think? Because there's all the goals about going to college, I want to be a football star, and then you can't play football because of COVID.
I think that there's been an interrupt in that. Definitely an interrupt, because and it could have positives as well as the negatives, because they stop to think for a moment. Before, it's like, okay, what am I doing? What's on my resume? I've got to get, A's in this. I've got to take how many AP classes. I've got to do my sports. I got to volunteer. And they're just, sometimes it's not even enjoying any of those activities. It's just what more and how's that going to look? And with the interrupt, it's like a bad side of if they go all the way down to not caring. It's like, so what with this world the way it is? But what they're doing is slowing down to think about it more. We have, when students come to SuperCamp, it gives them time to think. We ask lots of questions and a lot of reflection and a lot of looking in different areas. This last summer, we had a 17-year-old boy at camp, and he was, the first day was, oh my gosh, he's 17, and he was saying, this is a kids camp and they're taking my phone. And he was very mature. He, just complained about it. And then he gave me like a 4-page single line feedback about what we should improve.
Oh, that's fun. That's cool.
A lot of it was
that's cool.
Like have their phones back. And it was like, we should allow swearing. It was
this is great. Oh, classic.
It's on and on.
That's fun. Well,
I know, but I was taking that all in. But at the end of the program, he said, you know what I got? I got that I really feel like I know what I want to do in life. I
That's
feel
big.
like I've got my interest in
That's big.
psychology, and he was 17, and it was a huge turnaround. It wasn't like just a little, oh yeah, it was like significant for him.
Mm,
And I had a
cool.
conversation with him after camp, because I called him because of all of his feedback and such. I thought, I want to talk to this student.
Yeah.
And he told me, he said, I don't think I would have gotten there if I had my phone. I don't think I
Wow.
would have gotten there, if I could do whatever I want. It was like going through the exercises, doing the work, asking the questions, interacting with other kids,
Mm.
and focused eyeball to eyeball with other people. He wasn't watching his text all day, and he said, I don't think I would have got there otherwise.
But
Wow.
I mean, I have to say this about the phone thing, because wherever we travel, and I find it really, first I was really irritated. Now I'm just fascinated by people who will go out to dinner in a restaurant together, and they're both, here's a fork and the fork and the phone, and they're not talking to each other, but they're on a date, or they're married, but they're not
Some actually text
conversing.
each other at the table.
And they some will text each other at the
that's true.
same table. And like, what is this need for this thing that's blocking you from being with a person?
Being present.
And
yeah.
being present. And so I think, especially with children, they really need other people. They need to be in a group, not feeling blocked off and alone. I mean, TV was the start of that, where, oh, just sit your kid in front of the TV, that's the new babysitter. I'm like, no, it's not. It's amusing for a while, and then you have to monitor what they're seeing. But I think we have these technical abilities, but it doesn't make it good. It doesn't make it bad. It's a new responsibility.
Choice. You have to make a choice about what you're doing.
It is a new responsibility. And here's kids have phones. Did the parents, okay, that's good to a point, because they might need to call and do 911, but maybe, I don't know.
They do talk to each other differently now. It is by text, and just like trying to get that mindset. We're so big on the environment and the atmosphere. My background with both, I talk about Dr. Georgi Lazanoff, and this is from so long ago, and his primary is the impact of the environment, and he called it on the paranormal, the para consciousness of, everything sends a suggestion. He calls it dual plane learning. And then with Buckminster Fuller, who I spent time with, he talks about, he always says, I will never try to change humans. It's like, that's much too difficult. I change the environment and they change themselves. So we know the importance of having a nurturing environment, having a positive atmosphere. And when you're in it, that's where transformation happens.
And when you feel safe.
Yes.
There's something about that. And I think, yes, and I look at artists and musicians, right? And sometimes they could be in a really dark place, and they produce some of their best work, right? Are they going to go back and do the same thing in the dark spot? But that's their way of reaching for a safety place, right? Their art is actually part of that.
No.
Yeah. That's what they know. That's their comfort. But if you're in a negative place, or I know for a fact, for me as an individual, I'm very sensitive to my surroundings. And that's not necessarily bad, but if I'm in a negative surrounding, it really affects me. And I know I have to make a choice of, can you deal with this? How are you going to handle this? Are you going to be reactionary? Unfortunately, reactions kind of sneak in there. I'm apparently still in that zone, but you do have to, like you say, take that stop and breathe and learn those things. To learn and be able to really open your mind, you have to let go of fear. And that's what I think is so crucial. You have to be able to absorb without your brain going ding, 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 whether it's a phone or texting or whatever. You have to be able to go, I can leave that right now. So that's not necessarily fear, but it could be, on self-confidence as a teenager that, ooh, if
Mm.
I don't answer this now, then I'm not going to be as popular. So the popularity thing does play into fear and confidence levels.
We do teach the students about their feelings
Mm.
and about how the brain works and how the amygdala, in the brain is a station where it either it feels like negative emotions go there, and we call it fast because something comes in, and if we don't feel safe, the amygdala will fire, and we call it fast: fear, anxiety, stress, and threat. And
Mm.
so and a lot of misbehavior with students, if they're acting out, is because they were threatened, or we say, what caused your amygdala to fire? And then go back to, oh, I didn't feel safe because,
Mm.
so there's a fight outside. Another student said something mean to me. It's like a look on somebody's face. I just don't feel safe in this environment. So getting them to really look at, okay, what was my emotion and feeling? Can I identify it? And then what triggered it?
Mm-hmm.
And then what do I want to do about it? So
Mm.
then that puts them more in charge rather than ping-ponging. I'm at the effect of everything. It's like
That's
this happens, I react,
Yeah, then you're out of control.
because sometimes it can be just somebody wears a shirt that looks almost identical to a shirt of somebody who has mistreated in some way or threatened that child in some, it could be a family member that they feel awkward around, and then somebody shows up wearing something similar and they're like, oh, and they don't even understand why
Adults have
until
the
they're
same thing.
questioned. You don't
Mhm.
understand until you can slow down and start thinking and have the right questions asked to be led to, oh, so the next time I see that kind of shirt, my brain will tell me not everybody acts like that person in that shirt. That
Yes.
sounds complicated, but there are triggers to fear based on your past.
Yes.
Or your current situation.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter what it is. And I think school's got a gazillion triggers. Oh my
Oh,
gosh,
yeah.
that boy's cute. Oh, but then he did this. And so every time you think of him doing that, then it's like, oh, so there's all these triggers that I think, kids are taking in all the time, and they are at the beginning of learning those things, right? Isn't that part of it? Is that they're at the
Yeah.
beginning?
The more we can teach them about themselves and not assume, because
Mhm.
they're in a very challenging environment. We assume, oh, they know how to react, or they know why that's happening. And no, I mean, this
don't.
is a premise of SuperCamp, teaching students how to learn effectively.
Mm.
Oh, kids go to school, they know how to learn. But then when we teach them the skills, they say, why didn't anybody teach this to me before?
Yeah.
And it makes such a difference, teach me.
Mm.
And I was talking with somebody earlier just about the life skills have gone out of most schools. The home ec has gone out, maybe the
wow.
shop. And it's like
Oh.
they assume a mom was talking about her child went out off to college, and it's like she said, wait a minute, what do I do if I haven't taught her if the toilet's overflowing, how to turn off the valve underneath. I haven't taught her how to, and she was going down all these things that we just assume people know. But it's the same about your emotions, oh, you don't have to teach people, they just naturally know. Well, most
Or
often
just get
they
over
don't.
it. I've heard a lot of just get over it. That's what we did as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
And
Stuff
that
it.
just get over it doesn't, just stuff it away. Don't worry, just keep, that doesn't really work. And when you look at kids wanting to, move forward in their lives and wanting to learn, and maybe embarrassed to even say, I want to learn. And if they're not in an environment that really encourages that growth, that can also, or they're not connecting. How many students go, I don't understand how many students are going to say 3 times to the same teacher, I'm not getting it.
Yeah.
Or
No.
if they say it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's a
thing.
hard thing to say. That's a really hard thing to say.
Or get it to that point that they actually do enjoy studying. I mean, I remember
Mhm.
with history, here I read all the historical novels. I've traveled all over, and it really took me going as a teenager to the places where things really happen and getting that emotional connection to really understand history, because it was boring to me about how the books did it. The teachers, it sucked, honestly.
Yes.
And by the time I had that
It's true.
connection, I could take that connection personally and bring it to class myself. And then once I had a certain connection, then the teacher and I in the classroom could have this communication that
Mm.
changed. I remember him. It changed him.
Well,
You know, it
because
just, we all changed. It was like,
It's
oh, now
true.
we have a dialogue.
history
Yes.
classes do everything by dates, and dates aren't relative in a kid's brain. Whether it's the 1600s or the 1700s makes no difference.
The
to
80s
kid.
are old.
I can't
Apparently,
even-
classic rock now. My high school music is classic rock. So
I know, but but now that's within your lifetime. But if you're
ancient.
talking about dates outside your lifetime, it doesn't compute. As a kid, it barely computes as an adult.
Mm.
You know, like one time Lisa and I we were making this chart.
Oh, yeah, the chart of the world. Yeah,
Chart of
we've
the
talked about
world.
that.
Because we couldn't figure out, I was going to try to write a historic novel of Kenya. And then I realized, well, wait a minute. Did they have typewriters back then? I'm like, I don't know. And so we started making this
It was
huge
cool. I
chart.
got into it.
And we
Yeah.
got into it. And then I never wrote the novel because it's too busy on the chart, realizing that I couldn't line up the difference. Like, when was the typewriter invented? When was
There was no
printing
Google,
press
everybody.
invented?
This was not
Yeah,
Google.
yes, it's pre-Google.
This is
thank you
all
very
going through
much.
library books.
But yeah, just to figure out and get it in your brain what the 1600s, what the 1500s,
But as a
1400s
kid, I got involved
were.
because it was
You can get it
interesting. Because
through history.
I helped her because I had a voice in it. And I wonder about that with kids getting
It was a
involved
great
in
project.
school, getting into projects. Once you get into it as a kid, it's getting them in there. Then it's like the appetite is
It
huge,
was-
isn't it? Do
It
you
was
see that?
discovery. It was
Yeah.
discovery. Oh, well, you didn't get chopsticks at the same time as typewriter. Which came first, chopsticks or the
Chopsticks.
typewriter? Yeah, well, we know that now, but we didn't know. We were like, oh, and then it got out of control. It really did. It got way out
And
of
then we
control.
invented Google. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
but
Might as well
or
have.
Wikipedia. But the appetite, that appetite for learning is there. And I think kids want that.
Finding the association too. You know,
Mm.
how does that associate to something that they know, or,
Mm.
you know, between things, and make story out of it?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Instead of,
gotta
like
be
you said, a list of
relevant.
dates.
Yeah.
It's got to be, yeah, exactly. It has
how-
to be relevant.
How are things happening now for SuperCamp looking forward for 2022? Because, you know, we're kind of getting towards a different normal. I think, like Nancy said, it's always going to kind of linger, you know, the mask
Mm.
will linger. You know, it's become our biggest litter problem problem is the mask. But and it may become a new normal about viruses, who knows? But how are you looking now towards, you know, SuperCamp? Because I know we're at the end of the year now. It's like time to think about what are we doing in 2022. So moving forward, what's happening for SuperCamp?
Well, we are enrolling at this point for
Sweet.
summer. So we have our universities and dates and going
Mm.
forward. So it is, you know, it's a time we're living with uncertainty. You know,
Yes.
that we are going forward with the programs. And by the time we get to spring, same with the universities, they don't know what kind of
Mm.
regulations they're going to be. We are right now operating as if, you
Mm.
know, that it will be more open. More students will be vaccinated, you know, and what that looks like by next summer. So we're counting on it and going forward with camps. It makes such a difference when they're there live together.
Mm.
Oh, yeah.
And the parents just saying, this is what we need.
Mhm.
So I feel pretty confident that it will be easier than last summer. Let me
Yeah.
put it that way. And
Yeah.
we did it live last summer. We navigated.
So
You know,
yeah,
we
this is
did it,
building up.
so-
This is going to get better.
Yeah,
this
we
point.
know we know how to do protocols, and maybe there won't be so many protocols the next summer.
And even if
So-
you have to do protocols, at least you can still do it. I think we learned as a country in the world what to do if something like this happens again. we understand masking and washing hands and things like that. So moving forward for 2022, the probability is really there. But then also what I was seeing on your website, it seems that you have like something going on year round online that people can still connect, which is something different than, you know, back in the day.
No, this is new for us. One thing that came out of all this 16, 18 months of shutdown, we spent a lot of that time creating more online programs with our content and such,
Awesome.
and interactive activities. So the parents that are calling now for next summer, they're actually wanting something for their child now. Their child is starting the school year. What habits are they doing? You know, next summer is next summer. They'll be finished with this school year. So we say that SuperCamp begins the moment you enroll, and we included in the SuperCamp tuition that they get the entire online portal that we have. So we have classes on there on motivation and leadership, reading and writing and strategies, habits of an excellent learner, as well as our 8 Keys of Excellence family program.
Awesome.
So for them to get involved, and then we follow up with a live masterclass. So not only do they have the online program, but every week they can get on with one of our facilitators. And so we focus on a key a month is 1 week for the whole family with family activities.
Oh, wow.
And the next week we focus in on one of the core courses. So this month was motivation and leadership. Next month will be reading. So we always have a focus. So, you know, doing that over time will really set them up for success at SuperCamp next summer, because you can always go deeper and see new things. I mean, I've been sitting in the same courses for 40 years and I always learn something more.
Well, that's going to say, like, as soon as you say that I want to do it, does it happen like, so if say I enrolled because I want to join, it's cool you put us in the teacher program, but would it go from now until then SuperCamp happens, and can you use the portal afterwards?
Yes, you can use it afterwards. And also we have PostCamp. So we call it the pre-camp activities that we're doing all through the year, and then SuperCamp Live in the summer. And then we have refreshers and things that we send out after SuperCamp as well.
Awesome.
So
you know, I love
going.
this. I love this because I know when I tried to school Lisa on the road when we were living in Africa, the one thing, I mean, I could get the information and I could talk to teachers, but what I struggled with was actually structure. And I think that's what you offer is structure. And it makes sense. And without the structure, it's really hard to
You're
build.
flailing.
Yeah, you know, and you without structure, you do waste a lot of time.
Everybody focusing on the same area at one time.
And I like that you're actually having, it's not just like, here's all the resources, go to it, that you're actually having classes. So there's a facilitator. I think that's what I mean. Huge to have that. It's not just here's your book, here's a textbook, go off with yourself. You know what I mean?
Takes a lot of discipline and usually not so successful.
I don't think so. I wouldn't do very good in it. I'd be all like, okay, I've done it in one night. Goodbye. I'm one of those fast readers, Mom. I'm a fast reader. Doesn't mean that I took it all in, but I did it. You know, how far did I go?
What do you remember?
But yeah, I like that because you always have a call to the table. And I think that's, so it's the taking ownership key, call to the table, right? So you can't just go, oh, I read the 8 Keys of Excellence. That's great. You'll get
and
something.
That's it, right? Just
you have to implement. You get us to all implement. I mean, even us as adults, you know, as things go wrong on the road, you know, or right. So taking ownership is both ways. You know, at that key of excellence, Nancy and I still talking the 8 Keys language, and you know, I've had a lot of speak with good purpose things.
We just said the last year has been the key of flexibility, number one, because everything kept changing.
But I think, like you were saying at the beginning, Bobbi, that these situations that we're all dealing with, parents, teachers, adults, there's good things that come out of this. It's things that have been under the surface all this time, I think, that bubble up, and then it's like, well, let's get into it. Let's get in. You know what I mean? Let's get in. Let's make things different. Let's check it out. Oh, you're thinking about things this way. Ooh, to me, this is the hub of creativity time, which I love.
Yeah.
I just want everyone to be alive.
Well, and then adversity does spark creativity.
Mhm.
Yeah. There's been a lot of
have to-
creativity.
You guys have been
Yes.
doing I can't
No,
believe how much you've
it's
put
a
together.
challenge.
You-
If nobody ever challenges anything that you do, or you're not challenged, then you don't grow.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well,
So
hats off to you, Joe, and everybody at SuperCamp that have just, it's amazing. You guys just were like, okay, well, this is a lot fun, but let's dig in. You really,
yeah,
and then I think
awesome.
you had fun. None of us had fun at the beginning. We all thought, oh, this is like a blip. And then it's
Yeah.
like, oh, it's an extended blip, and the blip is stretching out and stretching, but
This is a new lifestyle.
you just turned around even just immediately for that 1 month of lockdown to do something. And I think that is commendable, and then just build and build and build and build from there. So it's a lot of work what you guys have done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So hats
I know
off.
when I think back, we probably would not have had, I know we wouldn't have thought we had the time to create all that, but since so much was shut down for a year, it was just, we used that time.
That's it. Exactly. You always have something, right? In an
Yeah.
adversity, you always have something you can work on. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Supercamp.com is the website to go to. QLN, right, for Quantum Learning Network. And you're still working with teachers. I always want to bring that up because I know teachers,
Absolutely.
they need mommies right now.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of social emotional. And
Yeah.
one thing we do is call it, the term out there is social emotional learning, and they do behavior management. We've changed that around to do behavior development or social
I like that.
emotional development, because we're focusing on training the teachers to be able to train the students into being responsible for themselves and to be able to turn around for themselves. And it's not, discipline and management. It's,
Yeah, it's not put down.
development. It's
It's
development.
growth. It's growth.
That's
Yeah.
more positive.
Development. I love that word
That's
because it's
positive.
growth. Yeah, that's
Yes.
awesome.
That's
awesome.
positive.
Everyone,
like
again, supercamp.com. So go enroll. Can we do it as adults? We want to come back to teacher school.
Yeah, you're welcome anytime.
We had fun there.
I know.
Good.
I know. Thank you so much, Bobbi.
Yeah, thank you both. Fun.